Hello, this is Joe. It's Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, and I'd like to read some more from the Talmud Jmmanuel. I'm going to be reading about Jmmanuel and his dealings with the Buddhists and Buddhism. When Jmmanuel was active in India, well into his old age, he did very much with the Buddha believers and with their bigwigs in terms of the instruction of the teaching of the prophets. Consequently, some things flowed into the Buddhist teachings, particularly with regard to being human in the real and true sense, etc. Unfortunately, he had no influence on the general Buddhist irrational teachings of rebirth, as for example, the false teachings about karma and other teachings and the rebirth of the personality, as these are defined in Buddhism even today. The soul is a factor which, like the consciousness, is subject to transience. However, the soul, contrary to the consciousness, which is self-creative, is only formable by the human being's thoughts and his or her feelings resulting from these. At the same time, the term soul is fundamentally not appropriate and completely outdated because in the better and specified language usage, this traditional Christian religious term embodies that which is called the psyche, which Beam has also written a book about, which you can get at the website figu.org. And there's many other websites you can buy many of the books Beam has written about creational teachings. The religious irrational teaching has, since time immemorial, determined the soul to be that which should live on after the death of the human being. But in truth, this is reserved only for the creational human spirit form, that is, the spirit, which is included in the creational, law-based reincarnation/rebirth. For a long time, the right term psyche has had that value which is meant by soul from a religious perspective. Seele comes from an old traditional or old Germanic word selle, and it is stated as or became selle in Middle High German, Sula in Old High German, so Savala in Gothic, zeal in Dutch, and soul in English. At the same time, this concerns a derivation of the basic concept of the one belonging to the sea. According to the old Germanic imagination, the souls of the unborn and of the dead dwelt in the water. The Teutons understood by the term soul the totality of that which makes the human being's thoughts and feelings and fine spiritual perceptions, which since the modernization of the languages has been correctly designated and implemented by the term psyche. This is because the psyche is formed from the thoughts, feelings, and fine spiritual perceptions, which, according to the Teutons, was referred to as selle. As regards the term soul, as is used erroneously from a religious point of view, this has been influenced by Christianity extremely strongly, and in the religious irrational belief, the soul is represented as the factor which should survive in death, which is truthfully wrong because this value is reserved solely for the creational human spirit, or the spirit form as a tiny creational part piece. In a figurative sense, the term sele or soul stands for the interior of a thing, as for example in the meaning of the cavity of a gun barrel. Other terms came into being in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries as Silanashi, soul axis, bore axis, Seelish, soulish, equaling mental, spiritual, Beseelen, in soul, or equaling animate, and entseelt, soulless, dead. Thus, it arises solely from this, that the term soul has nothing to do with a form animating the human being, but rather with a word that was designated as something completely different, and that was stolen by Christianity and was corrupted in an abusive manner for its religious purposes. The writing style of Judas Ischkerioths. Judas Ischkerioths. The manner and style of writing of Judas Ischkerioths, which appeared in the scroll, showed very strong specialnesses, which were given throughout the writing, and which were taken over into the new version reworking composition of the translation of the text. It's interesting to note that occasionally also partly normal writing styles appear, which is especially the case starting from the 23rd chapter, starting from which a somewhat simpler form of writing arises. Thus, the manner of writing and writing style of the translation text distinguish themselves up to the end of the Talmud Jmmanuel in a very strong manner, such that the grammar, that is, the part of the linguistic forms and their functions within sentences, is not identical with the laws in language structure and language teaching agreeable to today's traditional grammar, but rather corresponds to an extremely idiosyncratic and peculiar and very old form. The grammatical constitution of the wording and phrasing, thus, corresponds to a manner of writing and speaking which is characterized by ancient and particular specialnesses with regard to word order and word formation, and which was evidently a very special individual particularity of Judas Ischkerioths, as has probably never been used by any other writer. Consequently, the writing style of Judas Ischkerioths, without any doubt, stands out from all previously known old writings that have been handed down and reduces to absurdity other alleged writings of Judas Ischkerioths. In this regard, this also relates to a fake made by the Pharisee Simeon Ischeriot, in which it was calumniously brought to light that Judas Iscariot and Jmmanuel had forged together a plot in order to bring Emmanuel to justice and to make him a martyr. In the scroll written by Judas Iscariot, words appear in old and very idiosyncratic spellings in expanded forms by the addition of the letter E. So, for example, with the terms and words, the following arise. I'm not going to read all these words to you. There's too many to read. But a few are shifting galerity, solity, soli, kindlein. Now there's too many, and a lot of them are unpronounceable by me. So if you get the book, you'll go through this page and read it for yourself. Animals and creatures. In the Talmud Jmmanuel, a distinction is made according to the handed down knowledge of the Pleiaren concerning animals and creatures. Thus, even Emmanuel presented it in this sense and expressed this distinction in his teaching, So exclusively, only mammals are regarded as animals, while all other life forms do not fall under mammals as regarded as creatures, are regarded as creatures, such as reptiles, fish, amphibians, birds, and all fowl in general, as well as bacteria and viruses. Let me read that again. In the Talmud Jmmanuel, a distinction is made according to the handed-down knowledge of the Pleiaren concerning animals and creatures. Thus, even Jmmanuel presented it in this sense and expressed this distinction in his teaching. So exclusively only mammals are regarded as animals, while all other life forms that do not fall under mammals are regarded as creatures, such as reptiles, fish, amphibians, birds, and all fowl in general, as well as bacteria and viruses. Also, in the Talmud Jmmanuel, the word also is often used by Judas Ischkerioths in accordance with an ancient manner of writing, but the word does not have the same meaning as also, ALSO. Thus, in the given sentences, also spelt ALLSO has various values, as for example, then, referring to when, wie, referring to how, darum, referring to therefore, darweil, meanwhile, folgendes, following, somit, hence, als, as, auch, also, sondern, rather, ebenso, likewise, sowie, as well as, damit, therewith, und so, and so, aber, but, so, damit, auch, hence also, sonst, otherwise, in dieser Weise, in this manner, in der Weise, in the manner, folglich, consequently, phobi, in which case, sowieso, anyhow, danach, according to which, wodurch, by which, und denn, for, and so forth. In order to understand also spelled as ALLSO correctly in each individual sentence, the readers of the Talmud Jmmanuel are encouraged to fathom the correct interpretation of the word on their own in order to raise the right understanding for the meaning of the sentence. Move on. Faith, belief, knowledge, superstition, deluded belief. Faith, belief. Glaube, belief in faith. In Old High German, Glaube, feminine. In Middle High German, Gelube, masculine and feminine. From the Indo-European root, Leib, lieb, begehren, love, desire. There forms the Gothic Lubo, Liebe, love, noun, liefes, lieb, love, verb, and from this or from Gaulifs, valuable, Old High German equals Galub, awakening trust. There is further the factative Galabian, Glauben, and Vertrauen, believe, trust, besides Uslabian, Erlaben, Loben, allow or praise. Old High German equals Loban, Lobi, Geloben, in Lubian's hope. In Gothic, each of the terms Glaube, belief, faith, Liebe, love, Hoffnung, hope, Lob, praise, and Gelobnis, vow, correspond to a root. Right from linguistics, the term Glaube, belief in faith, points to a tension between the present and the future, and thus to something undetermined and not logically followable. In contrast to faith, belief, there is Wissen, knowledge, which has to do with things that are already finished and that can be logically followed. Logic is truth. Wissen, knowledge, is a substantive verb. Old High German, wissen equals wissen. Gothic Witten, which is formed on the basis of an Indo-European root, ud, see, recognize. In short, wissen, knowledge, means that which I know. Middle High German, weiß, plural, weisen. All of this means, since both present tense forms are formed like that of an old, strong preterite, that their significance of the inner having and the knowing is based on a perception built on past experience. Like the originally related, equally formed, and synonymous Veda from Sanskrit and Greek oida. The Greek pistis, which means loyalty, trust, equals the Latin fides, fidelity, was used by the Christian missionaries in the translation Glaube in Old High German. The Germanic North has returned the Christian belief term with true, Icelandic true, and Danish, Swedish tro. The secular use of Wahrscheinlichkeit, truth likelihood, and Glaubwürdigkeit, believe worthiness, is first found with Notker, Benedictine monk and teacher, circa 840 through 912. The Christian belief term Glaube, belief, faith, and its content determination, during their development particularly became prominent with regard to the meanings accept as true and trust, in which cases they were distinguished more or less sharply. According to the Catholic teaching of the Vatican Council, faith belief is, quote, the supernatural virtue by which we, with support and help from divine grace, accept as true that which has been revealed by God, not because we comprehend its truth with the light of natural reason, but because of the authority of God, who has revealed it, and who can neither err nor fall into error. A senselessness without equal, by which the human being is deprived of rational thinking, as well as intellect and reason. Accordingly, he or she is not able to decide what is realistic and what is unrealistic. According to this nonsense, solely the authority of God is allowed to be valid, so this must be recognized by the human being under all circumstances and must not be doubted. According to reformatory Lutheran teaching, faith belief is not only knowing the history, but having confidence toward God in order to receive his promise. In this reformed concept of faith belief forms a spiritual high-level attitude and a real devotion to the highest God. Faith belief is not something in the sense of accepting as true, which is regarded as meritorious or as something lacking a certainty. This rather is a meaning which has attached itself through the use of this word for common things. And I'll end with knowledge. Knowledge, true or effective knowledge, is always obtained in every case from that which has already become, that which is already present or existing, and that which is real or true. Hence, it is in itself a becoming and a true being, that is, a facing towards the giving existence and a future directed kind of the inner nature, which is limited solely to reality and the truth of it, without the addition of a belief or faith. Knowledge thereby differs absolutely from faith belief, as well as from mere opinion, and thus from having an opinion. Effective knowledge differs from mere opinion and from faith belief by the certainty of the actual existence of objects and processes and situations, which is based on objectively and subjectively sufficient reasons. The reasons concerning the effective knowledge can be taken from experience, as well as from critically examined reports and documents, testimonies, manuscripts, historical knowledge, as well as from insight into the nature and interrelationships of ideational things, such as ethics, logic, and mathematics. Knowledge is fundamentally the combining together of all knowledge content, which corresponds in a certain wise to a science. I hope you find this enlightening, and I'll be talking to you very soon. Have a great day. Salome.